Everybody, Dan Illman, Mike Beer, the DRF race of the day for Wednesday, March the 29th, race number 4 at Gulfstream Park. It's the kickoff leg of a 50-cent pick 5. We're going a mile on the turf, 2-life claimer, 35 down to 25. Before we get to the entry card, remember that Timeform US PPs are now free in your DRF PPs. When you head to DRF.com and you access your past performances, there'll be a Timeform US tab. Click on it. Try it for free, access the Timeform US Pace Projector, the Timeform US Pace Ratings, and all the good stuff associated with Timeform US. Here's the field for Gulfstream's 4th race, Wednesday's DRF Race of the Day. Click or scan the link for Race of the Day access on mobile with your free Formulator past performances. The 3 built different, beaten favorite last time out, but ran a pretty good race, rallying into slow fractions over Synth as your 8-5 favorite. Now he's got to do it on turf.
Yeah, also ran pretty well 2 starts back, I thought, Dan, trying to come from off of it and making up some ground there with a wide move. I can't knock his recent form. Not sure this is the kind of race where you want to go too low on anyone, though.
Let's see which one of these fillies and mares will make the lead, according to our friends at Timeform US. Here's their pace projector. I sort of agree that the 8 one-track mine, who's fresh off a little bit of a layoff, is going to show speed. While Musical Romance shows speed last time out on synthetic, that was just a much different approach than what she had shown in her prior starts, and I think she can sit back a little bit this time around.
I agree with that, Dan. I think it's kind of the key to the race in some way, though, because they did finally let her use her speed last time on the all-weather. The 2 turf races since she got over here, strongly rated in both of those races. She didn't really seem to like it that much. I wonder if they're going to opt to go forward with her from now on.
A few of these horses that have been racing on the synthetic recently have shown a habit of finishing ahead of each other. No clear superior filly. One of those horses is the 1 Mint Edition, whose lone lifetime win came at Kentucky Downs sprinting on the turf. She was 3rd last time out in a condition claimer over the synth, saved ground behind a slow pace, couldn't pick it up when it counted.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, the 2 times since they finally dropped her in class, I feel like that's what they needed to do with this filly, or this mare, actually. They finally dropped her, but it was on a different surface. And now they're going to run her at this level on turf, and maybe that'll make some kind of a difference. Her turf form, in my opinion, makes her a very strong contender here.
Her turf numbers are good. The competition she faced on turf much stronger than the horses she's going to be facing here. And it's quite simple. If you just want to take this as a class dropper on turf for the first time, you can, because those last 2 races, as Mike mentioned, was on synth. Musical Romance tried different tactics, as we mentioned last time out. They sent this horse on the lead in a recent Tapeta race. She went way too fast. The 3rd place finisher was up close to that pace and ran a little bit better, I think, in that race. But Musical Romance, that's not her game. Her game is turf. Her game is sitting and finishing, and she ran well 2 back.
I think those things are probably true, Dan. I mean, the pace was decent last time for sure. She was still pretty bad in that race, but it was on a different surface. And I feel like if the 8-1 morning line comes close to holding, she's the kind of filly you could give another chance to on turf. And both of the turf starts over here, just again, very strongly rated. Off that layoff, 2 back with Sayas taking over, got super ranked early in that race. The pace wasn't fast. She actually made a pretty good run into that race.
Jose Ortiz has the mount on the 3 Built Different, your morning line favorite. And we're going to watch Built Different's most recent start. Mike mentioned the improvement in the last 2 races, probably due to the addition of blinkers. And this was a race where there just wasn't a lot of speed. She was last. Probably the pace situation worked against her. She had to swing widest coming into the stretch, and she is gaining gamely on the outside.
Yeah, she runs well in here. This is not a bad performance at all. And again, I thought 2 starts back on turf at this level. I thought she ran pretty well that day too, Dan. Rated to the back, made a long, wide move around the final turn, took a bold run at the horse on the lead, couldn't get by or settled for second. I thought she ran pretty well that day, though. You know, again, she's not the kind of horse I can really knock. In some ways, she probably is the horse to beat. I just don't know that I would take a short price on anybody in this field, and she might be the favorite.
You're going to have a bigger price on the 4, Dulce Ambición. This horse could be part of the pace picture. She was part of it last time out in a starter allowance race. She showed good speed in a fast-paced race and tired. The winner came back to score with a 69 buyer and a $35,000 starter. The problem is she's just very slow on paper.
Yeah, she just hasn't run a race that's supposed to make her competitive yet. Although really, two starts back, she was just in way over her head, running off on the lead. Last time, probably a little bit better field as well. So maybe she's just in the right spot here, Dan, at a good price.
Our next two entrants are going off the claim. We'll begin with the number 5, Into Touring, who adds blinkers. First time for trainer Peter Walder. And the short comment of inside, rally between, I don't think really told the whole story. Let's watch turning to the stretch. Into Touring, who was saved ground earlys in the pink silks. She was banged around in between horses. She's going to split and she's going to finish an okay third. I don't think she wins with a clear trip, but I do think she's closer.
I agree with that, Dan. I thought she ran pretty well in here. I'm not going to say that she would have won this race, but she still runs pretty well here, back on turf and back around 2 turns for the first time in a while. Also, that to me, that was the most interesting thing about her. As a younger horse, they went long with her pretty early on. She ran fine in those races. They come back off the layoff last summer, and it's all sprints for about 6 or 7 months. They finally stretched her back out last time, and she ran well.
This Is It has a similar profile as the number 1 Mine Edition. I thought she ran well. This Is It. 2 starts back in that $50,000 claimer where the pace was solid. The 2-horse Musical Romance showed speed, but This Is It was closest to the pace and still finished third. Last time out, she did not run well at all. In the synthetic race where Built Different seemed to run best, she was on the outside chasing that slow pace, and she just didn't kick on in the stretch. Her best races have come on synth, but she's faced tougher competition on turf.
Exactly, Dan. That's how I looked at her as well. So far, anyway, it seems like her preferred surface could be the all-weather. But then when you start taking apart the 3 turf races that she's running so far, I mean, just in against way tougher horses in those races. So I think it's pretty hard to judge her. I would be fine just judging her off the all-weather performances right now and say this is her level. She can handle the surface just fine. I just want to see what kind of price she is because it feels like she could get bet in here with Irad taking over.
The 7 is My Maggie Moo. Now, the concern with My Maggie Moo is fairly obvious. She hasn't raced since August, but she is taking a steep class drop. This is the first time she'll be offered for a tag. Her most recent start came on dirt at Monmouth. She faced 2 next out winners. Probably fast dirt isn't her preferred surface. 2 starts back, she was in against a good group of first-level allowance horses on the turf at Monmouth. The winner of that race came back to run second in a second-level allowance with a 78 buyer. So some class relief, sort of an interesting price play with Paco Lopez aboard.
Yeah, I agree. If she's a price, I wouldn't argue too hard with it. I mean, she's just, to me anyway, just another really tough call in this race because while her overall form isn't great, it's mostly against better horses, especially on turf. And I mean, there's probably no real need to point this out there, but you can go back to 2021 on the grass. She's beaten less than a length at Monmouth by Bleecker Street. So I guess if you just take that race in isolation, she's supposed to be really competitive in here.
The number 8 is One Track Mine off the trainer switch to Kathleen O'Connell. This horse won her turf debut in New York against a group of New York-bred maiden claimers and did so from close to the pace. In Timeform US believes she can make the lead in here. In her first start against winners on turf, her most recent effort back in November, she chased a pretty solid pace. She tired. The 7th place finisher did come back to hit the board in her next 3 starts, including a win with a buyer of 74. If she gets loose, maybe she's an interesting sort of curious pace play.
Yeah, of course, especially if she's going to be a big price, Dan. I mean, she's still lightly raced enough that I don't think you want to judge her too hard. She broke her maiden as soon as they dropped her in class and switched her to grass. She broke her maiden pretty easily. She had a pretty soft trip in that race too, but she did get the job done. She's pretty bad the last time we saw her, but there's been a layoff since then.
Third off the claim for the number 9 Ball Gown, who goes out for trainer Dale Romans. Javier Castellano retains the mount. This one sort of finished evenly in both of her starts on turf. She has to deal with an outside post position here, and she's finished behind a couple of these already.
Yeah, I didn't like that about her, Dan. They stretched her out finally for the last 2, and she didn't run poorly either time, but she didn't have big excuses either, in my opinion, and she didn't run as well as Built Different last time or as Musical Romance 2 starts back.
Before we get to our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top selection time for our Wednesday DRF race of the day. I think we both want to go for prices in here. I think it's a fairly evenly matched bunch. I respect the favorite in here, Built Different off of her last race, but it was on a different surface. You're going Musical Romance, getting back to turf, maybe dirtied up a little bit by that last running line.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like that's certainly a fair way to look at her. We'll see how good she actually is, Dan. More than anything else in this race, whoever gets better, I'm not convinced that Built Different will be a really short price, but maybe she will be. But whoever gets bet in this race, I don't want those horses.
This Is It goes off the Bob DeBona claim. Maybe she'll be an okay price. She's 5-1 on the board. I don't want to take too much less than that. But I think getting back to turf against this caliber of competition, I want to see how she does. She was facing better the last time she stepped on the turf. 2-5-1-6 for Mike. 6-3-1-5 for me. It's an intriguing Wednesday race of the day. Kickoff leg of the pick 5 at Gulfstream Park. Race number 4. Good luck.